Tonight on Truth Talks, Diddy's prison clothes are hitting the auction block. It's not quite what you think. Plus, some black women are building up beauty empires from the ground up, from their own kitchen, and then selling them, and then catching heat after they get intergenerational wealth. Can a sister come up at all? What's really going on? But can we get quality hair products that we need? It's a big conundrum. And why are parents making their kids learn R&B history as punishment? I'm confused. Let's get into it. Truth Talk starts right now.
Are y'all ready to roll? Let's go.
The crew is all here. You know her, you love her. Dr. Cheyenne Bryant, how are you, my sister?
I'm doing amazing, Torrey. Feeling good about you today. So you'll be all right.
Our special co-host this week, you've seen her on CNN, you've seen her on ABC Live, you've seen her in courtrooms across America. She's a civil rights attorney and a media powerhouse. Ariva Martin is back with us. Welcome.
Oh boy, this is going to be a great show. So many topics that are hitting so close to home for me today. So we're about to have some fun on Truth Talks.
Ariva, I went to 7-Eleven last night and this kid was sitting outside and he asked me to buy him a malt liquor because the store had banned him from buying even more malt liquor. And I said, sure. And we started talking. And now Dimitri Wiley is on the show. Welcome, Dimitri Wiley.
I seen all of that coming. Oh, I hate you so bad. But it's a pleasure to be here.
Dimitri, call me if you need some representation. I got
you. Please let's get him locked up.
Defamation to me, possibly. So we'll see.
Thank you.
So look, let's go to our first topic in trending topics. Diddy's on trial for racketeering, but someone's paying big for his prison clothes? Really? You can't get the ones he's wearing now unless you go into the jail that he's in. But Diddy's prison costume from the fantastic 2001 film Monsters Ball recently went up for auction. The film was Diddy's second major film role. And in the film, which was very powerful, he plays a condemned man on death row. So we get to see him be marched to the death chamber. Dimitri, who would buy this? Do you think it's insensitive to auction that off right now while he may be about to get real prison clothes for a long time?
First off, the irony is killing me right now. The idea that it's actually quite hilarious. I cannot make that up. But the problem is our generation, not even generation, our culture. Our culture is so quick to create merchandise out of pop culture. We turn anything into merchandise before we even lived it. We're finished living it in reality. It's insane. But I think that's just our generation's narrative for monetary gain, how fast we fight for monetary gain. There's people who are going to pay a top dollar for these things. We've seen it with Michael Jackson. We've seen it with Kobe Bryant. You've seen it all over the place. And it'll continue.
Ariva, does it sound kind of weird for people to want memorabilia of somebody, let's say somebody who has been indicted on something very serious?
Obviously, very serious charges, Torrey, and we don't want to make light of it. But as Dimitri said, the irony is not lost on any of us. The fragility of fame and fortune. And although Diddy is not on death row, he is facing very serious charges that could, if he is convicted, he could spend the rest of his life in a prison cell. But let's face it, this is voyeurism at its highest, which is also ironic because there's so much about voyeurism in this trial. So,
that was too much. A little too much. Real Talks, of course, is brought to you by our friends at Hair Maniacs. Thank you so much for the support. Dr. B, can you imagine the sort of person who is saying, I want to own Diddy's prison clothes from that movie, which is only because he's going through what he's going through right now. If he was still running Bad Boy and everything was good, it's a completely different conversation.
Why are we glamorizing crime? Why are we glamorizing domestic violence? Why are we glamorizing not Bad Boy, the record label, but the bad boy? Why is it that our community finds so much positivity in the criminal, in the bad guy, right? I think that's a problem. no, I wouldn't want to purchase something that represents something that P. Diddy has already done. People have their opinions about the racketeering, about the sex trafficking, but you can't have your opinion about the domestic violence. It's on tape and we've seen it. So again, I think the bigger question is, how do we shift our perception as a community from glamorizing these kind of offenses versus taking a stand and saying that, no, we don't support anything that's associated or connected to this? Because this is also a direct disrespect to the victims who are victims in this case. I just think this is bigger than mentioning off some of his items for a movie he was in. I think this is a bigger narrative that we, again, as the Black voice on shows like this, True Talk, are attempting to shift and change so that our people can see things differently.
I'm not buying it. I get the question, but here's the thing. It turns into novelty at some point. It's just like Michael Jordan's first NBA jersey. It's novelty. They want it. You understand what I'm saying?
But hold on, let me get Ariva in here, because it's not like Michael Jordan's jersey. It would be like OJ's glove, right? And if we are okay with memorabilia from criminals, then fine. Let's call it that. But let's not act like this is equivalent to, I don't know, a Tally Berry's T-shirt from Monsters Ball. Ariva, go.
Yeah, we got to be clear about what it is that's being sold. And your point, Dr. B, about the domestic violence, yes, no debate about that. We can debate the other charges. But what I like about the sale of this item is that it gives an opportunity for advocates like us, Dr. B, advocates for women, advocates for domestic violence victims to take some agency here. So maybe some domestic violence advocate buys this and donates it to a shelter for women. Because one of the things we're seeing in this trial is victims standing up for the first time for many of these women, having the courage to stand up to a bully, to tell their story, and to gain back some of the agency that they lost in dealing with him. So I think we use this for good, because the reality is, like Dimitri, there's some people out there that are sick, that want to be able to say, I got Diddy's uniform or wardrobe from this movie, but I'm hoping that somebody buys it and donates it to a domestic
for sure. Diddy was in Diddy was in prison in that movie, dealing with punishment. I want to move on to a different topic, an entirely different vision of punishment, something that is much more kinder and gentler, but also somehow slightly controversial. A new generation of parents is going old school in how they are punishing the kids. Let's take a look at this video.
I act up in school, it's not funny, Cairo. I need 25 Drew Hills. Go. Step, jump. 1. No, that's not it.
How is it?
Step, don't yell at me. You rather get your ass whooped, or you want to do these Drew Hills?
My butt whooped.
You want your ass whooped? I got you. It's not going to be a belt. It's going to be a shoehorn.
I don't know how to do it.
Get it together. And I want a step and a high jump. I want you to be up there. 20 Drew Hills. Go. 1, 2. That ain't it. That ain't it.
How is it that?
Get it together. Step, jump, step, jump, step, jump. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Put a smile on your face.
Ariva, I think it's giving Joe Jackson. It's kind of gross the way that he's kind of marching him through this sort of rehearsal that the kid doesn't. I can't tell if this is punishment or he's like some sort of demonic dadager who's like, this is how we're going to practice becoming the next Drew Hill.
Ray, can somebody call Child Protective Services, please? Like yesterday. This dad wants to be Dr. B. He wants a viral moment. That's all this is about. Making this kid do something, yelling at him. Does he want his ass whipped? Not going to be a belt, going to be a shoehorn. All something like child abuse to me. Exploiting this kid to get some likes, some clicks, some views for a video to go viral. It's just disgusting. And parents who are doing this, you're on the internet. So the Child Protective Services, this video could get sent to a teacher, get sent to a mandatory reporter. Somebody watching this may be not calling Child Protective Services. You may get a knock on your door. So cut it out, Dad. Grow up. Or make a video about your own self jumping, doing the Drew Hill dance. Leave this kid alone. Let this kid be a kid and not be subjected to this punishment.
Dimitri, you got a 10-year-old I totally agree with Ariva. The threat at all, the threat of using a very hard shoehorn on the child. And you know what really made me cringe? When he told the kid, you better smile. Like, so I have to pretend to like this as you are antagonizing me? I don't know, Dimitri, what do you think?
For me, I'm not this parent. Like, I can't be this parent. I can't do it for viral sensations, and I don't do it for TikTok. That's just me personally. Parenting should never coexist with what you want with viral sensations on the internet. For me, I think about the idea in Black culture. We know spanking and slapping the kid on the hand ain't gonna get the job done, right? Sometimes we take a further extent, but we also understand the idea that what happens in your house should stay in your house. I ain't saying hit a kid with a shoehorn at all. What I'm saying is I do turn to alternative punishment when my son acts up in school, but you're supposed to be reading. You got extra homework today. You got this, you got that. I ain't saying hit your kid at all, but this is pure amusement for a parent and their followers and not at all being a good parent. It's terrible.
Yeah, Doc, this makes me super uncomfortable. And like, yes, everybody has addressed that this is for clicks, but putting aside that, I imagine this is probably the way he talks to the child on the regular. So I'm very uncomfortable with that and like looping in. The Drew Hill part seems like an excuse to get on the kid.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's the nature of him and his son's relationship. But I can say this, just being in my field for 17 years, I didn't see any fear or discomfort in the kid. It seemed like they kind of role played this before. The kid knew to kind of say, I want a whooping. And so I understand it looks bad and sounds bad, and it is bad to exploit your child for clicks. But I can say, just from observation, as being in my field for this long, that kid wasn't afraid of that father. That kid was going along with this role play they're doing. And I'm not saying it's okay to pray, because I'm into
hold on. If they are role playing, as you're saying, which I think you're probably right, they are putting on the internet a video where the kid is seemingly consenting to getting his ass beat. Like,
there you go. Now that's the bigger problem I was getting into. I was going to say the role play part and having this parent-son relationship that they can play and be cool, and there's a safe space because it's aware this kid is not in fear for his life in this video. But the narrative, again, that we keep putting out to our Black community at the hands of our Black families is not the representation of Black families, at least not most of them. And so when we're putting out that, hey, we're beating our kids with shoes, and if they don't do a Drew Hill jump up and down thing, then they are going to get beat and disciplined. It's like, is that really a disciplinary moment? No, we're not talking about a kid who cursed or a kid who acted up in school or who's talking too much in class or doesn't want to wake up in the morning, or, we're not talking about a disobedient child. We're talking about a child who's not doing a damn dance move that you want your child to do, that in my opinion, he's too damn young to even listen to and know what the hell Drew Hill's talking about. He's not even old enough to know or should be exposed to that language. And I love what Ariva said. She said, listen, it's you want someone to do this damn dance move? Dad, do a video of you doing it so you exploit yourself and get your own clickbait. Don't use your child as a way to build your own internet social media career. That is not cool.
Ariva, as a parent, I'm uncomfortable with the threat of corporal punishment, and I assume that corporal punishment has been used on this child before, the way the dad is talking about it. Like, all of that makes me uncomfortable, whether we're talking about you didn't do the dance right or you're late for school or anything. Like, we shouldn't be interrelating with our children through violence.
Lazy parenting, that's what it is, Touré. I'm going to give a shout out to Mr. Dimitri, who said with his kid, he gives him extra reading. You know what extra reading requires from you, the parent? For you to be sitting there reading with the kid or overseeing the reading. A smack with a belt or a shoehorn or something even more extreme than that is lazy parenting. It doesn't require much. You hit the kid, then the kid cries, and that's it. What Dimitri is talking about is changing behaviors, engaging with your kid. And that's what we want to see more of in Black families, in Black communities. Yeah, we got beat. That shit was child abuse. Let's call it for what it was. It was not the right thing to do, but our parents perhaps didn't know better. But we know better now. When we know better, we got to do better. So let's read with our kids. Let's take our kids to a museum. Let's take them to the park. Let's do something that engages with that child. and stop using corporal punishment because it doesn't help the kid. They're going to end up in Dr. B's office talking about the trauma that they experienced as children that carries over into adulthood. So,
Reba, I love that you said that. I want to add one thing that a lot of Black folk would respond to you saying, well, in the Bible, it says, spoil the rod, spare the rod, spoil the child. And I have talked to an academic expert on this issue who's saying, we are completely misunderstanding what that means. The rod was something that an elder would have to represent that they have wisdom. And you would never strike another person with that rod. So what they were actually saying is if you don't share knowledge and wisdom with children, then you will lose them. Then we will ruin them. Then we will not do the best we can for them. This is coming from another language, right? So we can't have a literal translation, but the Bible is saying share knowledge with children. It is not saying you got to hit them. That is not quality parenting when we hit the children.
And Torre, we have a lot of knowledgeable kids and adolescents in this new culture. And we have a lot of gentle parents, and these kids are just a complete disaster. These kids don't seem to be doing too well. I got my ass whooped. I don't call it abuse. So I'm going to push back on that. And hey, I'm going to toot my own horn very, very humbly. It worked for me. I don't believe in gentle parenting. I don't believe in abuse. But the Bible also says an undisciplined child is an unloved child. I have felt and still feel at 42 damn loved because my parents took their time to pay enough attention to discipline me and to explain to me why they were doing it. So these knowledgeable know-it-all kids you're talking about today, they have a lot of narcissistic, all about me mindsets. It doesn't seem like that knowledge is working because they're not implementing it. Sometimes kids need discipline that go past sitting down and having a conversation.
There's all sorts of ways
you can discipline your kids, but you don't have to use physical punishment to discipline your kids. Nobody on this show is saying that discipline isn't appropriate. Yes, we all agree that kids need structure, they need discipline, but using physical punishment for kids is not, and there's so many studies that talk about this, is not the way that you change behaviors in children. All you're doing is creating more violent children. They then violence
because when we are violent toward the children, they go into fear, they go into freeze. You do not learn when you are in fear or freeze mode. You learn maybe how to make your attacker stop attacking you, but you're not actually learning. So we really shouldn't be putting that into our children, into our homes.
What you and Reba are talking about is abuse. You're right. It does not work. It shocks your nervous system. It shuts the child down. They can't be receptive to information. What I'm talking about is discipline. Those are two different things. Popping someone on the hand or telling somebody on the bottom on the leg, that is not abuse. That is called discipline. There's studies that also show, do your research, that gentle parenting is not working. Kids are becoming abusive towards their parents. They're starting to take control over the household, and they're starting to parent themselves. We need to do a show on that where we pick up the stats.
The things you're talking about, the goal is to inflict pain. The relationship between parent and child should not and does not need to include physical pain. We can talk to them and explain to them what we need to explain to them. But if you need pain to get your message across, you are not doing effective parenting.
And Torre, if you tell your kids to do something and to you, that means the discipline that you're doing isn't working.
As a parent, I know sometimes you tell the child to do something and they don't do it. And that happens. And that is fine. We are going to talk about it, but that happens. You can't just teach them every time that you don't do what you're telling you. It's not a game of time. Parenting is not a game of time, it says.
Your boundaries are not working. Your disciplinary tactics are not working. That means you have to change something up. Doing the same thing with no result or the same result is called insanity. Don't teach your kids to do that. Teach them how to have boundaries, how to be obedient and disciplined. Go ahead, Reba. My bad.
You keep introducing this concept of gentle parenting, and no one has said that is the only way to discipline children. There is no study that shows smacking the kid on the back of their hands is going to be more effective than sitting down, talking with that child about the behavior that they engaged in, and then coming up with some ways to change that behavior. There are all kinds of studies that talk about the use of violence toward children. There are no positive outcomes. Hitting, okay, I won't use the word beating because then you'll say you're not advocating for
violence is not discipline, that's abuse.
But even smacking a kid on the hand is a form of violence, and you're teaching kids that you can resolve conflicts. You can
That's
resolve
not violence or abuse. I hear you, sis. I respect it, but I push back. Smacking a child on the hand is not violence, and that is not abuse. I hear you. I respect it, but I push back. That is not violence. That is not abuse.
I just want to say, if it was me,
smacking the kid on the hand has any impact on changing their behavior.
If it was me in 2005, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10, if my mama came to me and she said, you either gonna do this Drew Hill or get this ass whooping, I'd have did that Drew Hill all day long. That's all I'm saying. If this guy was not posting this on the internet, we would not call this terrible parenting. That's all I'm saying. If it wasn't on the internet and he wasn't hitting the kid, we wouldn't call it terrible parenting. We would have did them Drew Hills, but that's just me.
It is definitely okay in many households where it is very productive to not discipline, not be violent, but to have a smack on the hand, which is called physical discipline, and it has worked.
I don't know what working means. Every time you are violent to the children, that is not working.
Every time you are violent toward the children, that is a failure of parenting. There's no, I hit the child and it worked. That doesn't exist. You were violent toward the child and you taught them that your relationship includes violence. There is no place in your life as an adult where it is acceptable, moral, legal, or appropriate for you to be violent toward another person. Why would it be acceptable for adults who are twice the size of children, who provide everything for the child, love, shelter, home? I need you for everything. But we say it's acceptable for me to inflict
violence.
pain
We
on
keep
you?
saying violence and abuse, as I keep saying, is not legal. Disciplining your child is legal, and there are physical disciplines like popping on the hand. That is not violent. That is not abuse.
Violence. That is violence.
That is not. And listen, bad parenting isn't you pop your kid, so you're a bad parent. Bad parenting, again, is a parent who continuously has a child who's disobedient, and that parent is not getting through to that child, whether that parent is talking to that child or disciplining them. If you're not getting through to your child, you have to figure out what works for that individual child. Each child is subjective and it's circumstantial. So again, if you continue to tell your child not to do something and we see they continue to do it, I say that's bad parenting.
Okay, Dr. B, Teray and I are never going to change our minds about using any physical force towards children. And I agree with you, though, that if you're not getting through with one form of discipline, you have to use another form of discipline. But that other form of discipline should not be and never has to be using any physical force towards your child.
I think a lot about how I got beat more times than I can count. It was abusive. It was the best my parents knew then. But before I had children, I read Dr. Alvin Poussant, an essay he had, a study he did about violence in the home and how it's better to not have corporal punishment, and how this is a holdover from slavery. This was not part of Africa pre-colonialism. We did not beat our children. We thought that the child was the reincarnation of grandpa and grandma. You would never spank your grandmother. This is what the slave masters taught us, that this sort of violence will make you behave. And we keep doing it. This is the whitest thing that we can do. And some of us keep arguing in favor of it. I want to move on to our politicking segment.
This week in politicking, we are following a very important story. This is a story that went viral for us last week, and it is the story of two twins in Georgia who mysteriously went missing and then came up dead. Some say it's a suicide. Others have questions about what happened to these young men. And we are following this heartbreaking tragedy of the Lewis twins. For those who may be unfamiliar with this story, and if you are, please, please, please do everything in your power to become familiar, because stories about the deaths of Black people don't get nearly enough mainstream media attention. So we in the Black media are making sure you know about this story. But here it is. 19-year-old Georgia Qaazir and Naadir Lewisr left to the airport and never made it home ever again. Their bodies were found 90 miles away in the Georgia mountains, and their disappearance and ultimate death was labeled first a murder-suicide, then upgraded to double suicide. Here with us today is attorney Gerald Griggs. He works with the Georgia chapter of the NAACP, and he is representing the Lewis family. He's digging his heels in and asking the tough questions that often law enforcement won't ask. And he's forcing the Georgia Bureau of Investigation to be transparent in their investigation. Before we welcome Gerald to the show, let's see what he's had to say about the twins and the disappearance.
We've been here before, many times in many different counties all throughout Georgia when there's a mysterious death. So we stand here for the twins demanding the same thing we demanded for Ahmaud Arbery and others. A thorough, complete, and full independent investigation. Because we find it very hard to believe that individuals that resided in Gwinnett County would somehow end up in Towns County on a mountain they knew nothing about and commit suicide. We've been here way too many times. So in the 116 years that the NAACP has responded to lynchings, we know what a lynching looks like, we know what it smells like, we know what a cover-up starts out like. If it truly was a suicide, be transparent. Release all the information. Let independent investigators determine what happened. But if it's a cover-up, keep covering up, because the eyes of the world are on this case.
We are so honored today to welcome famed civil rights attorney and president of the Georgia NAACP, Gerald Griggs, to the show. Just want to, first of all, as a fellow civil rights attorney, say to you, thank you, Gerald, for taking this case on, for shining a light on it, and making stories like this, stories involving Black people, making this story so prominent. Let me ask you, we have all expressed so much empathy and sympathy for this family. How is the family doing right now?
Well, they're in a difficult position right now because they don't have answers to what happened. The GBI is not being as transparent as it should be. And that's why we at the Georgia NAACP through the Gwinnett County branch are pushing for them to release the entire case file, because we don't believe that this was simply a double suicide. These two young men were born and raised in Gwinnett County and Lawrenceville and found themselves up in Towns County on a mountain that is locked, dead from apparent gunshot wounds. And we find it very difficult to believe that these 19-year-olds, one of which who had a flight booked to go to Boston, would simply just leave that flight and go directly up to the mountains to shoot himself. So we want to have answers. We've seen some of the pictures that were released by the firefighter, unfortunately were released, and we see that there are some grave concerns. So one, we want the GBI to release the entire file. Two, we want the governor to order an independent investigatory panel to look into this death. And three, if there are any nefarious things that have happened in this case, we want someone prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law, because the family is sure that this smells like a cover-up. And Georgia has a history of this, whether it's Kendrick Johnson or it's Ahmaud Arbery. The initial story does not pass the smell test. It does not pass the smell test in this case.
And we know, Gerald, you've been involved with high-profile cases like the Ahmaud Arbery case and others. Why is it, though, that it takes so much, such a Herculean effort to get the media to focus on these cases when the victims in this case are Black people?
Well, the media doesn't focus on Black people when we need help. And so that's why it's incumbent upon platforms like this, Black media, to push the narrative. We have to look no further than Emmett Till. It took Black people exposing that atrocity to get the attention of the world. And so we must do it in this case. Back to what we saw in Scintilla Shores, that initial story was he was a burglar. It wasn't until the entire world saw the video that we started to get the truth. So in this particular case, we find it very difficult to believe that two 19-year-olds would travel 90 miles to a remote mountain in Towns County, the Pine Mountain in Hiawassee, where they've never been before, behind the locked gate, and execute themselves. That does not pass the smell test. So to answer your question, the media sometimes is not concerned enough about the loss of Black life. And that's why it's incumbent upon the Black community to show that concern.
And we know Dimitri said on the show before that when it is a mysterious Black death, we rarely get justice. We get stories, we get cover-ups. And so oftentimes it's the family having to hire a private attorney like you. It's the NAACP and it's private investigators that do that work to uncover what actually happened. Can you tell us in this case, Is there a private investigator working with your firm or with the NAACP or the family to try to get to some of the details that are important to this case?
So, yes, we have our legal redress committee that's already investigating this case with other lawyers and investigators, but we need the investigatory file. And many times that's the holdup. When you have government entities that go ahead and rule something a double suicide, but then don't release the information so that we can do a thorough investigation. We found out from the family just a few days ago that many times in the investigation, they didn't pull all of the video. You know, Georgia's equipped with Georgia Department of Transportation cameras, flock cameras, and of course you have the gas station surveillance cameras. So there should be a trail, an electronic trail that follows them all the way up to the mountain. We need to all that to be released so we can do a thorough independent investigation. But yes, we have investigators and attorneys on standby. And we must remember that in all of these cases, this is the purpose of the NAACP. One, Ida B. Wells was a prolific journalist of lynchings. And so we have to be the ones to investigate these mysterious deaths as we've done for 116 years.
I'm curious, Gerald, what information, if any, has the GBI given to the family that substantiates in the first place that these were suicides?
None. Absolutely none. And so that's the issue, the transparency, the accountability. If the GBI is truly an independent investigatory arm, let the family see all the evidence. Don't release statements to the press and then say, oh, by the way, the case is not closed, so we haven't turned anything over yet. And that's my issue with the GBI. I take that very seriously. If you're going to be an independent investigatory arm, you need to be transparent.
So Dr. B is not only the president of the NAACP in Los Angeles, she's also a psychologist. So Dr. B, weigh in on this story, because if this is suicide, ultimately, if that's where the facts lead us, how difficult is this going to be for the family to accept that both their sons committed suicide? And then what should we as a community do to help this family?
Yeah, Reva, I love that you mentioned suicide, because what stuck out to me that you said, Gerald, is for them to release information so that the independent investigators can take over and do a proper deep dive at investigating whether or not this is what it is. We know that law enforcement has been known for keeping information and prominent evidence from us, meaning the Black community, NAACP, so that we are unable to dive deeper into that. But to answer your question, Ariva, suicide is something that is again, it affects everyone, not just the folks who unfortunately take their life, but it affects the families long term. But then what we all tend to forget is that in addition to the families being affected, there is a community that look like us on here that do and are affected by every time somebody in our Black community commits suicide. We are all affected. It affects all of us as a community. It also puts all of us, I talk about secondary trauma all the time. It puts us in a place of having to experience and hear and see and be a part of secondary trauma. The third thing is called learned behavior. It teaches a really false narrative to our community, especially our Black boys. It teaches them that when times get hard, that suicide is a proper and okay way out, when it's not. It also continues to push the narrative that asking for help is weak, and that there is no help, and that that folks are not going to show up for you and help you process through this weight that you are carrying. And so when we look at it from a collective perspective, all of us are affected. And land on this. Suicide used to be a white thing, and I am at no way condoning suicide, because mental health is a human right. It's not a race right, it's a human right. But the fact that it is at an all-time high within the Black male community is heartbreaking, it's disheartening, and we do have to do much more as a community by standing up, by asking questions, by checking in with our brothers. By the way, this month, June, is Men's Mental Health Month. Why are we not bringing more awareness to Men's Mental Health Month? Why are we not making sure we're checking in with folks, especially our Black men, and saying, bro, are you okay? Do you need anything? What resources do you need? And really quick, when someone says they're not okay and we see the signs, when someone says they are okay and we see the signs that they're not, it is our responsibility as parents, as loved ones, and as community leaders to take that extra step to say, you don't seem to be all right. So I want to make sure I personally do a wellness check. I make a phone call to do a wellness check, and or I give you the proper, necessary resources to make sure that you really are okay.
No, that's great advice. And thank you for reminding us that June is Male Mental Health Month. And we know in the Black community, it is taboo, too much negative stigma around talking about mental health issues. I do want to go back, though, Gerald, to the investigation, because there is some public information out there floating around on the internet that the twins Googled suicide and had bullets sent to their home. Have you been able to verify that? Is that just disinformation on the internet, or are you familiar with that? Help us understand what's going on with that information.
And so that's what I mean by the GBI not being transparent. You release press statements with some of the evidence, but don't release all of the evidence. And so, yes, it is in fact true based on their investigation that there was some indication that there was web traffic on searching for suicide and bullets. But they also didn't talk about that one of the twins had booked a flight to Boston to be with his girlfriend, was looking forward to that outing. So my question is, if you're using this particular evidence to substantiate your conclusion, why not release all the evidence so that independent investigators can get to the bottom of what actually happened? Don't smear the victim and not release the evidence.
And Dimitri, I want to ask you, you're not 19, but you're closer to that age than the rest of us. How does this hit for you when you hear a story like this? Two 19-year-old Black young men, and now this whole mystery around suicide versus murder-suicide versus potentially even murder. How is that hitting in the Gen Z community?
Oh, man, it's not just only hitting in the Gen Z community. I think it hits home because I've admitted to mental health issues myself, attempted suicide here on Truth Talks. So it's a very sensitive subject for me. And I think the thing about it is, it's an honor to be speaking to you guys. Just at that, I just want to say the level of intelligence and what you guys do know. But I think for me, I know a lot of times we only speak from what we know, and I know we're trying to fight to get evidence out there. But to me, the silence around Black death, whether it is a suicide or it is not a suicide, seems more like a confession to me. It seems more like you guys know, and I'm solely speaking for my generation. When we looking at it, it's not only that it feels like they're telling us it is a suicide. It feels like that's all we giving you. Get over it. It feels like that's what they're telling us. And for me and my generation, who, as you guys say, like Dr. Brian implemented, it's become more of a mental health crisis these days than it's ever been for young Black men. And for us, this adds to it. It's not only that you feel like suicide is a valid option, but honestly, you start to feel like it's the only option because you go to your mom, you go to your dad, you go to people around you. And I'll be honest. Excuse me for, getting a little emotional about it, but when you living in a space like that, and let's just say hypothetically, this was a suicide for these kids. That's not to my belief, but if we speaking on suicide, when you living in a space like that, even the slightest no can push you over the edge. Even the slightest, the slightest turn of what you needed. You may have just needed a hug, and not having that at that moment would push you towards that. And I'm solely speaking that because I'm hosting a few mental health events for young men here in Chicago. It's super, super personal to me. And this specific topic hits home. And I thank you for everything you guys are doing, especially surrounding this case in terms of bringing awareness to it. So thank you guys so much.
Thank you so much, Dimitri, for sharing, being honest, because we can't heal what we don't acknowledge. And acknowledging that mental health issues exist in our community is definitely the first step towards healing. I do want to, Gerald, before we let you go, just ask, what do you think the GBI is hiding? We know that these investigatory bodies want to quickly close these cases, particularly when they start to get some media heat and when they see big time, big dog lawyers like you get involved. They want to shut this down as quickly as possible. But do you think this could be some kind of, white supremacist that's out, some kind of hate crime? Like what do you think could be behind the cover-up?
Not sure. And that's one of the main questions we want answered, because we do know there's a heightened climate of racial insecurity in this country, but particularly in this state, especially in that particular region of the state. And so we just want to make sure that there was no involvement of any of the known hate groups that are in this state, of the known white supremacist groups in this state, that there's no indication as any racial animus or attack that happened. You can't just close the book and say, oh, it was a double suicide, when y'all thought it was a murder suicide from the very beginning. And so it's a lot of unanswered questions, which transparency from the GBI and an independent investigation can dispel. But Georgia has a long history of trying to sweep things under the rug. And we at the Georgia NAACP say, not on our watch, be transparent, release the entire file, and let the independent investigator determine what happened.
So, Gerald, obviously, we don't have any more information than what has been provided from the GBI and what we've heard from you. But if this is a murder, walk us through what happens next.
What happens next is it should go to the district attorney's office up there in Towns County in the judicial circuit there. And there should be another thorough investigation and a presentment to the grand jury, an indictment and a trial. But our hope right now is that we don't have to escalate this any further, because Georgia does have a mechanism where private citizens can bring forth a judicial investigation through a warrant application hearing. That's why we need the evidence, because, again, we only trust law enforcement as far as we can verify. And in this particular case, after 20 years of practicing law, I find it very difficult to believe that two 19-year-olds who know nothing about Pine Mountain would drive up a dark, winding road through a gate up to the mountains and kill themselves in a way where their bodies were placed in a way that the family believes was a sacrifice. And so there are a lot of facts that are starting to come out. Namely, both of them weren't the best of drivers. They get lost with directions and all these things, typically don't drive that far, and already had plans to go to Boston. So there are some serious concerns about what may or may not have happened. And that's why the family is pushing through the NAACP and all of their supporters for the GBI to be transparent. And the message to the GBI is this: if you have nothing to hide, why would you conclude the case as a double suicide but not release the file?
Yeah. Well, I can tell you with 100% certainty, we are feeling so much better having had this conversation with you, Gerald. This is a difficult case. It's a difficult case for our community, for our young people. But knowing that the NAACP of Georgia is on the case, knowing that you are on the case, give us hope that we are going to get to the bottom of this. We're going to find out what happened to these two young men. We're going to hold anyone accountable that had anything to do with the deaths of these two young men. We are going to stay on this story. It's an important story for our community. It's an important story for this show. But tell us, Gerald, before we let you go, what can we do? Is there a GoFundMe account? Is there a letter writing campaign? Are there calls that we need to make to the GBI? What can we do as a community to support you and to support this family?
All of those things. The family has set up a GoFundMe to support this case. The NAACP is calling on everybody concerned, both in the state of Georgia and outside, to put pressure on the GBI to be transparent and release the file. So you can call the GBI. There will be a change.org petition that will be going up very shortly. Just Google the names of Nasir and Qaazir Lewis and support the family. But most importantly, share this story. We are in a viral internet digital age. Share the story so we can bring awareness. That's exactly how we started to push to get justice for Ahmaud Arbery, is because of your viewers and others that stood on business and made sure that everyone knows that Black lives do matter and that we will hold accountable anybody who tries to neglect or take a Black life.
Gerald, before we let you go, I want to ask you what is going on with this family. We know that these cases can have a devastating impact on their mental health, on their physical health. So talk to us about what's going on with the family.
It's definitely a very trying time for the family. The father has had 5 strokes. And because of this particular case and the concern and the pain and the hurt, I think a lot of people miss the impact of what something like this does to a family, especially a close-knit family like the Lewis family. Other family members are dealing with other serious medical conditions. So we're hopeful that we can provide assistance to get them through this trying time and also take care of their health. But it's definitely a trying time for the family.
Again, thank you so much, Gerald. I can tell you our executive producer is on this story. She takes it very seriously. All of us, the hosts on this show, are with you. We share with you the commitment to find out what happened to these twins, and we will continue to watch this story very closely. We hope to have you back on a weekly basis to keep us updated. And again, to everyone watching this story, please share the story, go to the GoFundMe account, do what you can to help us get justice for the Lewis family.
That is the conversation we're having in the community. But I want to move on to another conversation that we're having in the community. In real talk, we all love Black girl magic. But what happens when that magic leaves your hair dry and breaking? A lot of Black women have found that historically Black hair brands are selling out and then leaving them behind. So the companies like Carol's Daughter and Shea Moisture, which were built by Black people to serve Black people and did that very well, find that the founders sell their companies, take home a bag that can change their children's lives, maybe their grandchildren's lives. But the customers sometimes end up feeling betrayed because they need good hair care, and major corporations come in and buy successful Black hair companies and then leave people feeling like when the ownership changes, we lose a brand we need. The formula changes, the things that make the brand important to us change. It's a complicated conversation. I interviewed Lisa Price, who started and ran my favorite hair care brand, Carol's Daughter. And when she sold the company to LOreal, she felt some hating. At first, she was ashamed, but then she pushed back. Roll that clip.
I started a company in my kitchen and I just sold it to the largest beauty company in the world. And I'm walking around ashamed because people think I'm a sellout because they don't even know who I am. I said, no, I'm not feeling that anymore. I'm not owning that. That's not my story. When I got back to New York after that weekend, we started educating people as best we could because I felt like as Black people, we're accustomed to being stolen and taken from and used. So I changed the narrative.
Ariva, you've seen this journey as yourself, growing up, dealing with your hair and then being a parent. Now your daughters are grown up, but like you've dealt with this in multiple ways. So how's that Black hair care journey for you?
Well, first of all, was that some shade, Touré, about my hair?
No, your hair looks amazing. No, but just every Black person, especially Black women, like, you know, you find your brand, you find your style, you find your, like, everybody, no, your hair looks amazing. Are you kidding?
It was a joke, bro. It was a joke.
The best looking hair on the show.
Oh, look at that love bombing, Dr. B. Okay. I love
Get him, Marina, get him.
I love this topic. And I had an opportunity to see the founder, Lisa Price, at a recent conference and talk about, as you know, Touré, she's bought her company back. So that's a really amazing thing if people didn't know that. But look, here's the deal. It is the double standard that Black women are always faced with. So here we are building companies out of our kitchen, companies that get the attention of these multi-billion-dollar brands. We have an opportunity to sell them, to create generational wealth in our own community, to model what it means to be an entrepreneur, to have our company sold publicly on the New York Stock Exchange, to become wealthy so that we can now invest in other companies. We can invest in philanthropic organizations, and we can do all the things that we know wealth affords us to do. And then Black folks say, well, wait a minute, my perm isn't working the way it used to be, or my hair isn't as shiny as it was. We don't hold white sellers and entrepreneurs to that standard. When they sell a company or when they divest from a company, we don't hold them to that standard. So why are they expecting Black women, Black entrepreneurs, Black business people to be held to such a high standard? If the product no longer works, that just creates a market opportunity for somebody else to step in and create a product that does work. So I say right on to Lisa and every Black woman entrepreneur out there that's building a business, selling that business if they choose to sell it, or keeping it if they choose to keep it. But give us the same options and opportunities as every other entrepreneur is given. given.
I want you to go a little deeper on that, because you owned and operated a very well-known law firm, and lots of people were like, wow, that is so inspiring that this sister owns and runs this law firm, and maybe I can do that one day. I'm sure you've advised people in this space era. So there's Ariva, who owns this thing and is an inspiration and a beacon to adults and children. But then you want to change your family's life, your grandchildren's life, and you want to sell the thing and realize the value. Both things are valid choices, but like there is a value to the community in being seen as owning something.
Oh, I totally agree with you. And there is a value in creating those intergenerational businesses and passing down a business, whether it's a law firm, a bank, or a hair care company. But we're acting as if these women who sell these companies go off and, sell to the south of France and are never heard of. These are entrepreneurs. So they may sell that business, but more often than not, they are creating other businesses. And all I'm saying is give us an opportunity to do the same things that other entrepreneurs are doing. And most of these folks, I can't speak for every last one of them. I can speak for myself as an entrepreneur and a business owner and so many others. We are thinking always of our community, and we're always thinking of how we continue to create value for our community. And trust me, if we can get $1 billion sale of a company, that just allows us to create more opportunities for more entrepreneurs to invest, because we know Black founders are less than 1% of all recipients of venture capital funds. But if I sell a business for $1 billion, guess what, Teray? Now I got money that I can invest in hundreds and hundreds of other Black entrepreneurs.
For sure, there's very, very few Black companies that have exited at a billion, right? We would love to see that, but that is a very, very hard standard to reach. But Dimitri, she makes a great point. The counselor makes a great point about women and what the lens that's being put on them for selling. Is it the same, do you think, for men, Black men who create companies and then sell them? Is there the same sort of, sort of feeling about like, yay, we take so much inspiration from you owning it, and thus we're so hurt when you sell it?
I don't think it's the same standard for men and women. Just based on how our culture looks at it, we are always a lot harder on women when women want to be entrepreneurs and they do the correct entrepreneurial thing. It's actually quite amazing to me that we're this way. Maybe it's probably because men pay less attention to the actual ownership. Like, we support things and we don't care who owns it. We don't know who owns it. But the thing about it is, I think what's interesting to note about this whole thing to me, because I'm with Ms. Martin for sure. I think sell it where you can, because that's the point of being an entrepreneur. It's to create income, generational wealth for the family and everybody under you. But the interesting point to me is that more than likely, the same people yelling she's a sellout, the same people yelling you shouldn't have sold it, were probably not supporting the business anyway. You were already going and buying from the competition she sold it to. So it's an interesting thing to me.
Shai, I think some of these folks, though, who are complaining are loyal fans of the companies. I mean, we're talking about hair care companies, and how important is hair to us, especially as Black people? How important is our hair looking good to us? And traditional manufacturers are not really checking for us. So when we have the Carol's Daughters and the Shea Moistures and other people, Hair Magic, who are like here to help us and like want to be there for us, like, we love them. We need these companies to be there for us. When you sell the company, after you've created this great relationship with the people, your customers who are like, especially for hair care, we need you. Do you not still have a responsibility to them? To the brand will still be there for them. I want to roll a video that speaks to that and then talk about it.
Their hair once gave bounce, body.
My edges were thinning out.
It's like clumps coming out.
And suddenly they were pulling up to the scene with their ceiling missing.
I was in denial. I'm like, it can't be Myel.
It's everywhere on social media.
Because my hair in the front was just falling out.
Ruined my hair. You heard me.
Myel Organics hit with claim after claim recently on social media. Customers saying that some products were turning them into bald head skittle diddles.
A lot of these products, especially when they have fragrances, can be really damaging for Black hair. So I mean, when we're getting a Black hair product that is meant for us, where they're putting in who knows what kind of chemicals and people's hair is falling out, and I've heard many other stories like those stories, That's a very, how do we even trust the market?
I think we're mixing apples and oranges. Thank you, Dr. B, for introducing the concept of for-profit. So two types of companies, for-profit and nonprofit. Nonprofit on a mission to do something, save the world, save whales, cure cancer. For-profit, make money. So if that product now is damaging your hair, give a lawyer a call, because that's called a lawsuit. That's called a products liability lawsuit. That's not a Black founder shouldn't sell her business issue. That Black founder was in a for-profit company. She did what a for-profit company should do, which is maximize profits. Now, if the product is failing you, whether it's owned by the Black woman, the white person, the brown person, whoever, then you may have a claim for damages, and you can assert that claim for damages in a class action lawsuit, in an individual lawsuit. There are lots of ways for you to be compensated for the damage to your hair. But don't hold Black women accountable to stay in businesses where they're not maximizing profits in for-profit companies. We can walk and chew gum at the same time. We can have profitable companies, and you can be compensated for damages to your hair at the same time.
Dr. B, she's absolutely right. Okay, but I'm Sharkeisha. I just sold my company to L'Oreal, and there's a million sisters who've been relying on me for their hair looking right. And I'm about to take my 20 million and go to Turks and Caicos for the next 5 years. But is it okay for me to leave those million sisters who've been relying on me for their hair and say, well, I don't know what this big hair care brand is, what L'Oreal's going to put in here. Good luck. I'm out. Is that okay?
Well, this is the thing, right? Once L'Oreal purchases that business, that is L'Oreal's responsibility. That is no longer my responsibility. Now, me as a business owner, I would have put out a disclaimer that says, hey, all of my fans, my followers, my consumers, thank you so much for supporting me when I did own such and such, but I have recently sold it. And so they are taking over. And I just want to do that because I love y'all, but I will be building more businesses and more products just for you ladies, because I know we are a community here. And I would have went onto that brand disclaimer of a video because I want to be able to keep my audience, because I'm going to build more businesses. That would be a business for me. But I do believe that once it's sold, like once I buy my Bentley off the car lot, is mine. I'm not going to go back and say, hey, by the way, guess what? Unless they say there's been a defect, or hey, we found that in the year of 2010 there's an auto defect. But L'Oreal owns it. That's why contracts. We have attorney on it. That's why contracts and agreements are made, Torre, so that we know the person who owns it is responsible for what comes next. But I do want to input this. Yes, as an owner who previously owned it, this is just me personally, because I love my community. I love my clients and my consumers. I would have said previously, I'm selling it. Love y'all. Thank you for the support. This person is owning it now. Go on and do that over there.
But your example calls itself out. If you buy a Tesla and something goes wrong with the Tesla and it's their fault, you didn't get into an accident, you can go back to Tesla and they'll fix it. They may even call you or email you and say, something's wrong with the car, bring it back, we'll fix it, right? Everybody does that. So if I buy Carol's daughter and my hair falls out, that's not like caveat emptor, right? That's your problem, right? Like that is, I would go back to the company and be like, I've been trusting you. I mean, my God, if Carol's daughter, after all these years, I've been rocking with Carol's daughter for like 25 years and it's fantastic. And I've tried others. It is the best for me. And like, if my hair suddenly started to fall out, like I would find Lisa wherever she, and I'm like, how did this change? What happened? We were doing so well. And I would think, and I mean, a lot of times, Ariva, they do make a provision, like the sister will sell the company and then become the chairman emeritus or the CEO or whatever. So she stays working in the company and even collecting a salary. So she stays part of the brand, right? Is she not incentivized to want the brand to still serve the customer, even though she doesn't own the brand anymore?
I think she does. And I think to the point that Dr. B is making, that the best owner that sells may be able to do is to tell their audience, to tell their clients that they are moving on. And in your example, sometimes they do stay on with the bigger company. They get a position as CEO or product manager or some position. And many of them will try to keep the product, the fidelity of the product in place. But again, big business steps in. So if L'Oreal says to Lisa, yeah, you were using this product, but for financial reasons, we are going to change this formula. Lisa may be limited in her ability to force L'Oreal to use the same products that she was using. And that's why I think Lisa and some of these other folks end up buying their company back. Maybe they don't like the way the big company has changed their brand. But again, putting all this on the backs of Black women, where is there incentives for us to go out and build big companies if we can never sell that company out of fear of being called a sellout? Again, not a standard that Black men are held to, not a standard that white folks are held to. I say support those Black owners when they sell those companies. Trust that they have our backs, that they're going to do something with that money that continues to enhance and make our communities better. But don't shackle them with these unrealistic expectations. They are not martyrs. They are business women. Give us respect. We're business people.
Dimitri, you have no hair. That's the question. No, I'm kidding. But no, Ariva makes an amazing point that there is a business legal aspect to this, and then there's a cultural aspect to this. And the reason why these brands succeed is because they become beloved by us. We tell our friends, yo, my hair looks good because of such and such. And then they start wearing, right? So it matters to us in the community. I started using Carol's Daughter because I saw an ad that said Will Smith and Jada Pinkett Smith had invested in the brand. And I'm like, well, Jada must know. I can't take a better recommendation on it than Jada, at least Jada then. This is way before Chris Rock, Dimitri. But talk about that problem for a founder that we create this deep relationship with the Black community, but then there's this legal and business aspect of like, but I'm here to sell.
Yeah, it's absolutely a double standard that only our culture enforces on entrepreneurs. Only our culture forces on other people. I think the thing about it is, for me, it's all about how you view it internally. As a business owner, am I here? Did I create this product for my culture, or did I create this product to actually make money? And if the goal internally is saying, I did this to make money, I did this for my child, for generational wealth, I don't care how they change the formula, then you understand what side of the table you actually sit on. But for those who actually care more about what the product brings to the culture and how many people use it and how many people rely on them, then those people are less to sell. Honestly, it's an internal battle that these owners must go through. And there's honestly I'm sure you can work it out contractually, like in the contract. But there's ways you may be able to save the culture's face in it. But honestly, when you sell the business, you sell the product, which in turn changes the message. And honestly, a lot of time the message is all we have.
This is not just about selling out like we've been talking about. This is also about protecting our health. Some of these lawsuits are speaking to L'Oreal, Revlon, Dark and Lovely, Cream of Nature, like the brands that we have loved and cherished for a long time. So when you hear about these reports about these potential harmful ingredients being put in these relaxers for decades, back even when Dark and Lovely was owned by a Black-owned company, Carson Products, I mean, if even Black founders are creating products that can be dangerous, does it even matter who we buy them from?
That's the $1 million point you're making right here, Teray. It doesn't matter what the color of the owner is. If anybody is putting chemicals in hair care products that are harmful to us, that cause cancer, they need to be held accountable. I don't care what your race is. I'm not going to ride for a Black owner that uses chemicals that are bad for us. We all have the right to purchase products. We all should be able to go into a store, buy a product that's safe, that doesn't cause cancer, that doesn't cause any harm to our bodies. And we should be speaking out against these companies, even those that we love, if they're poisoning us. I'm thinking of every relaxer I've ever gotten as a child. And I got a whole lot of relaxers. And if you are a Black woman, you probably have had a relaxer put in your hair at some point, even during pregnancy. I probably had relaxers when I was pregnant with one or more of my children. So it makes me very upset, very angry to learn that those products that we trusted, those Black hairstylists who were buying those products, making these companies millions and millions of dollars, they were putting us at risk. And now we find out 10 years later, 20 years later, that we may be more susceptible to cancer because we were relaxing our hair. So yes, sue them. Get every dime you can out of them. It's not going to prevent the cancer, but it might provide you some much needed compensation to help you get needed cancer treatment or to deal with some of the damages you suffer if you are one of those individuals that got relaxers and now you find yourself with some kind of cancer.
Doc, how do we know what we can feel good about using when, as we said, even some Black companies are putting dangerous things in our hair care? Like, I would assume if it's Black owned, that means that they're thinking about us and we can trust them. And we know from the data that that's not always true. So then what do we do?
Well, it's a dual responsibility. I know when I was young, to Ariva's point, my family put a relaxer by Dark and Lovely. But when you read the back of Dark and Lovely, it says on there, may cause cancer. These chemicals may cause cancer. Those are disclaimers. So, I mean, yes, folks should be creating products that are as safe for consumers as possible. But at what point do we hold ourselves accountable to say we also have the dual responsibility of reading what we're choosing to use or what we're choosing to do?
When they know that it causes cancer, you almost wonder, is it become like a deliberate thing to try to hurt us?
I mean, the thing about it is the bombshell is the idea that, of course, they knew it was dangerous. But the thing about it is they knew that regardless of anything, the straight hair thing we were looking for has always been tied to fitting in and being clean and appropriate and acceptable. So regardless of what I put in this bottle, they're going to buy it regardless. And I think that's the thing about it. The thing about it is, how far were we willing to go in not reading the bottle and not reading the ingredients to understand that this was actually causing harm? I think people don't actually speak on that perspective enough, that it was here in my face the entire time. I was just so concerned about straightening my daughter's hair so she can look good for this or fit into this or have this clean image or appropriate image. So that's it for me, honestly. That's how I feel.
Ariva, to what he's saying, I mean, he makes a fantastic point. Your hair looks extraordinary, but should we not be saying, and I'm sure you've had this thought, of like the whole notion of us saying straight hair is the highest level. And this is this is when I go to look really, really good. This is what I'm going to do, get a relaxer. Our whole notion that is what looking professional, looking our best is. Isn't that part of the problem?
That's very much part of the problem. Now we're talking about European beauty standards that have been imposed on the Black community. And for the record, this is not a relaxer. This is what we used to call a press and curl, and now we call a straight iron. I don't know what we call it today, but it's not a relaxer. But I want to push back on something Dr. B said and about the labels. So yes, there are warning labels that are on these products, but they're very, very misleading. So at the same time, there may be in very, very fine print on the back of a product, something about it causing cancer. We're also getting bombarded with ads in the media, on television, on the internet, on social media about these products and the safety of these products. So I'm not going to let these companies off the hook because they put something in the smallest print ever on the back of the product about cancer. The reality is they're telling us that these products are safe. They told our parents they were safe because my mama wouldn't have put a perm on my head if she knew that it possibly would cause me cancer.
I mean, I feel like in America, if I go into a store, I should be able to trust that the things in the store are safe for me. I shouldn't have to do a PhD level research and become a scientist to know all the chemicals to understand, like, oh, this actually isn't safe for me. Yes, I believe that companies have a responsibility to give me products that won't harm my body. And I think the legal system, Ariva would say, completely stands up for that, because if I use the shampoo or the conditioner and my hair falls out and my scalp is damaged, I can sue them and they will probably end up having to pay me. So we have determined that absolutely the companies have a responsibility to be good to us. But we are surely feeding into the whole thing by, as Ariva pointed out, Eurocentric beauty standards saying that this is what we want our hair to look. I mean, I didn't know that your hair was not relaxed. I think your hair looks fantastic, Ariva. So there was no shade there. There is the opportunity to use natural products and things without fragrance and things without certain chemicals. And there are brands you can buy where you can customize what goes into the bottle, and you can say, okay, I don't want that. So then it is even perhaps safer for you.
The thing about this is the larger conversations is self-acceptance. You can put all the natural products in the world you want on the market. But the thing about it is if they are not what I deem worthy, that the world tells me is worthy of acceptability, then I'm not going to buy it. The thing about it is you got the option to do your hair however you choose to. But if the world is shaping you in what you should believe, then that's all that's going to matter. When the world teaches you to hate your roots so they can sell you a product, that's all you're going to do. That's all you're going to know. And a lot of times it starts young. Like your mama was already buying these products, so it was already laid on you. All it did was continue. And I think that matters. We need to push self-acceptance in order to push natural products, because I'm pro-Black women doing what they want to do. Baby, and rocking your natural hair is what you feel like you should be doing, I'm clapping for you. That's all I'm saying.
Aw, that was so nice. Yeah, your DMs is gonna be all filled after.
Come on now. Hey, look, hit me up.
Comment
773. No, I'm just
kidding. You can't put your phone number on the internet, nigga. What you doing? You crazy. All right. Thank you so much, Ariva, for coming through as a special guest and bringing your legal mind and everything else. We really appreciate it. It's been an honor to spend this time with you. Like, comment, and subscribe on our YouTube channel at TruthTalk-Live. Support us by donating to Truth Talks Live or visit our website and become a VIP member of the Truth Lounge. Advertisers and small business owners, we have space for you. You want to advertise on the show? Speak to our 10 million strong viewing audience. Come find us. Go to Truth Talks Live. We'll figure it out. Click on your favorite co-host VIP room. Support Hair Media, and let's build Black media together. Tomorrow night, we're joined again by Ariva Martin to peel back the layers of truth, justice, and what it means to live bold and Black in America. Truth Talks airs weeknights at 8 p.m. EST and 8 p.m. PST. We will be here for you tomorrow.